Hey everyone! So a very common issue among not just low elo players, but even up to challenger players, is dying really dumb deaths by refusing to play safe for just a few seconds. This is something that most players struggle with, and if you become an expert at it, not only will you avoid your own deaths, but you'll be able to start seeing patterns to punish people when they're playing terribly. Speaking of terrible gameplay, you may also want to stick around to see the true colors of one of our experts that you learned from. You won't believe that we actually pay this guy. Alright, we're coining this the 5-second rule. It's the best way to avoid silly deaths, and it's really simple. If you ever spot a situation where you're in immediate danger, just back off for around 5 seconds. This may sound incredibly obvious, but you'd be surprised at how many people die to not doing this. Players tend to want to win 100% of the time. This just isn't possible in almost every competitive game ever. There are points where your opponent will have the advantage, and having the mental discipline to back off is literally all that's required. The only hard part is knowing when to back off versus each champion, but it's usually really obvious. For example, if your Nekton has close to or 100 Fury, you should probably back off. If Vladimir is on his 3rd Q, if Fiora's passive spawns facing her, if Jax has his passive stacked, etc. Ideally, you try to prevent these conditions from happening, but they're bound to happen eventually, and unless you are incredibly ahead, you shouldn't fight a champion who is at their strongest. Alright, let's show you exactly what we mean. We'll be reviewing a few games of one of our experts, Hector, playing on his Diamond Smurf. In this game, he's playing Aurelia. Since Aurelia is such a popular champion, everyone should know that she excels when her passive is fully stacked, giving her a ton of damage. With that in mind, let's watch how Hector plays out this lane to make short work of the enemy Kled. As the lane begins, Hector is immediately trying to stack up his passive. He makes sure to queue every low health creep possible. Now, he enters a tough situation. If he queues this minion, he'll be in melee range of Kled, who should have his bear trap up by now, which could result in taking a lot of damage. So Hector goes for the 50-50 read. He queues the minion, but immediately queues back through Kled, reading that Kled would immediately throw out his bear trap as he dashed in. This was a great read by Hector, which results in a solid trade and accomplishes his goal of stacking his passive. The problem is that his Q is now on cooldown, so the only way to maintain his stacks is to auto-attack Kled. Kled should know this, so if he backs off and lets Hector's passive fall by not fighting him for just 5 seconds, he could try to regain lane control afterwards, since Aurelia, with and without passive, is an entirely different champion. So what does Kled do? Well, he continues to trade, allowing Aurelia's passive to stay up. Despite his continued trading versus a 5-stack Aurelia, the trades actually go fairly even, so Kled isn't even doing too bad. But these trades do give Hector lane control, and he's approaching level 2. Therefore, all Kled has to do is play safe for a brief period of time, since the wave is shoving into him very hard and he's not going to miss any CS. So what does Kled do? Well, he watches as a fully stacked level 2 Aurelia casually walks up to him and kills him. So while Hector did play this out fairly well, almost everything that he did was ridiculously telegraphed, and if Kled had just played safe for literally 5 seconds a couple of times during the lane, he wouldn't have died a minute into laning phase and would still be there CSing and getting XP. So champion specific power points can sometimes be a bit trickier. Let's watch another game to see what we mean. Let's add a bit of context to this one. Supposedly, this Smurf account is the one Hector uses to test his limits. This is his excuse for playing aggressively at 3 minutes versus a Rek'Sai jungle, which costs him his flash. It's also why he gets repeat ganked a few minutes later, playing aggressively with no wards while his flash is down. This is actually a great tip for solo queue. If you're ever feeding a game, just say you're limit testing and it removes all accountability from your actions and preserves your ego at the same time. Because he's playing like a moron, Hector is quite behind Ryze, a champion that you definitely don't want to fall behind versus. Hector comes back to lane to find a frozen wave. This is pretty bad spot to be in as a melee champion versus a Ryze and Rek'Sai. Thankfully, Ryze decides that it's important to break his own freeze for absolutely zero reason, shoving the wave back into a Yasuo. This is another common problem that players face. It's okay to make a mistake like shoving the wave into Yasuo, just make sure that you don't double down on your mistakes and make matters even worse. Let's break down the situation Ryze has placed himself into. He's allowed the waves to crash in an ideal area for Hector to dash through and initiate a trade. Not only that, but look at the minimap. There's a blue minion wave approaching, and since minion waves are mirrored, there's a red one coming up as well, which Hector can use to extend a trade. This is an incredibly specific timing for Yasuo to look for an all-in, yet Ryze continues to play up in the lane, handing the free all-in to Hector for no reason, resulting in his death. So what should Ryze have done? I think you know the answer. He should accept that he messed up and play safe for literally 5 seconds, even if it means giving up this cannon minion. That way, the wave that was coming crashes and Hector's trade would end here since he's already used E on Ryze and there'd be no way to extend the all-in. Not only that, but Rek'Sai was clearly coming. If Ryze stays alive for 5 more seconds, Hector 100% falls for a bait and dies to another gank. Alright, on to the next game. Just like last game, let's give a bit of context. Hector dies to another 3-minute gank without vision. How unexpected. He teleports back, fights Alawi, but greeds and doesn't use his flash, leaving them both very low. So Vi casually kills him again. Then this happens. And finally, Hector, who is 0-3 and a level down, decides it's the perfect time to all in. To be fair, it's a pretty close fight, just like every other time. Oh, and Vi kills him again. Here at Skill Capped, we're proud that we're the only company that pay our players to feed in their games. Well, us and TSM of course. So, what's Hector consistently doing wrong? Well, he continues to brute force fights versus Alawi without baiting her E out first. Walking up to Alawi as a melee champion makes it very easy for her to land her E and completely destroy you. Importance obviously varies based on matchups, but most champions have an ability that you want to try to bait out before committing to an all-in. While Hector does get ganked 3 times, each of those deaths is because he's already super low from face tanking Alawi constantly. So Hector finally decides to change his game plan. He starts standing in the open, hoping to bait Alawi E with his own. Eventually, she falls for it, and despite being ridiculously behind, he easily kills her. This may seem Akali specific, but it's really not. It's more about knowing when your own champion is weak and vulnerable. Most top lane champions can easily 1v1 Alawi if she misses or wastes her E, since it's a huge part of her kit's power. So is Alawi never allowed to throw her E? Of course not. She just has to do it correctly. Again, in this situation, all Alawi has to do was play safe for literally 5 seconds. If she lets the wave crash, she can fish for her E on Akali as she last hits, not only making it easier to land the ability, but preventing Akali from being able to dodge it and engage with her E. This way, she never throws her lead and continues to stomp the laning phase. Let's jump into the final game that we'll be reviewing. So possibly the most consistent way that top laners die is by not taking a few seconds to ensure that they're not being ganked before looking to fight. Hector, being 2 levels up versus this Gnar, decides to fight without a ward, so he gets ganked and has to blow his flash. Moments later, Hector has no choice but to E onto the Mega Form Gnar next to a wall, while Jarvan is obviously still topside. So he dies. We really can't stress this enough. If Hector waited literally 5 seconds, Lee Sin gets there in time to help. Or if he took 5 seconds to ward before either of his engages, he spots Jarvan and doesn't throw his lead. This is a great ward trick to learn to keep you safe. Use whatever keybind you use to lock your camera, the default being Y or holding spacebar, and walk to this crack in the wall. Then just place your ward below this leaf and voila, you will no longer die silly deaths. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this video. The 5-second rule is something every player struggles with to some extent, and becoming a master will help you avoid silly deaths and punish your opponents when they fail at it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.